Everybody, welcome.
Did you hit record again?
Yeah, I'm recording. I'm already recording. I recorded this whole damn thing. I'm so good.
All right.
I did. I recorded. Yeah, I know.
I did.
I did.
I recorded all of it.
I recorded all of this. This is on record, people. Okay.
That's funny. Use that. Use that.
Yeah, we'll use that. All right. So everybody, welcome to, what are we doing? Pros Talking Prose.
Pros Talking Prose.
Pros Talking Prose. Welcome to Pros Talking Prose, everybody. We are so grateful that you have joined us this day. We are exactly where you need to be. We are going to be talking about taxes. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, such joy and happiness.
Yeah, just such joy. But it's going to be applicable to you as an author or business owner. So we're going to kind of talk about the world of the business of taxes in terms of like the author world. So just buckle up. We're gonna give you a wild ride here. We're gonna try to make it fun and less depressing. All right.
Yeah.
So okay.
Less depressing than it actually is. Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, so today I just left my tax man. So this is so fresh on my brain right now. He just charged me a hefty little sum, and I am so grateful to him because without him, I think I would be completely lost. Last year I filed.
Or in jail. In jail.
I didn't even file last year until October because I had so much anxiety about it. I was so it was like hiding. And in fact, I even called him and I said, oh my gosh, are they going to come arrest me? Like, I'm seriously worried. And he says to me, you're not committing fraud. You're just ignorant.
You're just late. You're just late.
Just pay the late fee. You'll be fine. He says they're much too busy with other people. I'm like, okay, good. But yeah, I was laughing. But yeah, so taxes, they are scary. And you're talking to the number one, like seriously, I have so much anxiety about money in general. Anytime I talk about money, I just want to go crawl into bed and like cover my head and just watch true crime, podcasts for the rest of my life because I don't want to pretend like I have anything else to worry about. But of course, that's not life. So we're going to just give you the tips and tricks. I think that I might just kind of lead us into some topics here and let Troy kind of chime in because this is something that's like near and dear into my heart as far as like business. I love the business side of things. I hate money, but I love the business side of things. So I'm happy to help you structure things as you go forward. I'm always well structured, but I'm just not well organized.
Well, and hey, let me just interject something about money really quick. Is first of all, it's easy to be anxious about money because we're always wondering, as freelancers, business people, whatever, you're always wondering where the next payday is coming from. And we don't always have that like normal. You just have a paycheck and your boss takes out your taxes and it goes through HR and it's all fine and lovely. And that just doesn't happen for us. So we developed this anxiety about it that really, for the most part, 99.9% of the time is unnecessary. But first of all, worrying about it doesn't get you anything. No more money comes. If I worry extra, no money comes extra. In fact, usually less money comes because I'm spending my time worrying and my mental energy worrying and not doing things that actually make me money. But anyway.
Why are you lecturing me, Troy?
So I'm kind of lecturing everyone because this is the entrepreneur mentality.
Right.
This is the thing. We all get in this from time to time. But more if you can just let that go and be like, hey, money is money, and money is not the reason we do the things we do. It's a means to an end. And if we don't worry about the money too much, usually my best money years have been the years when I didn't worry about money. So anyway, all that being said,
good point.
You do have to worry about the IRS. So, we'll talk about that a little bit. Don't worry about it overly much.
Just know that there's people that are much more deserving of attention from the IRS than you are. So just keep that in mind.
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing I want to touch on is, first of all and foremost, and again, one of the number one tips, tricks about this, the whole thing in general, is treat your author business as a business. You have to treat it as a business. I personally recommend setting yourself up as an LLC. It protects yourself and it allows you to stream that income in a way that you can track it. So you can register your business usually with your state. In the state of Idaho, I know it's pretty cheap. I think it's like $60 or $100 or something like. It's less than $100.
Under $100
It's really easy. There's just a few simple questions like who's your president going to be, but usually with an author, it's just you. So it's just pretty easy. And that means requiring you to go get an EIN, which is an employer identification number. You can get that through the IRS for free. Doesn't cost any money to get an EIN, and you're going to open a business account once you have that EIN, meaning that you can go down to the bank to say, I would like a business banking account. It's not just a standard checking account. It's a business banking account. And then you set that all up before you start getting your first checks. And then when you set up your accounts on your distribution and your aggregators and everything, you can make sure that all of that money is going to be dropped into that. So all your Stripe accounts, PayPal accounts, and everything can be dropped into that account. And that's the basics on getting that all set up. That way you can keep a record of what you're receiving and what's going out. Use that account strictly for business expenses. So like when you're pulling money out of there, either you're giving it to yourself as an officer for, income, or it's paying for something for your business, marketing, so on and so forth. So Troy, what do you have to say about treating yourself as a business entity?
So 2 things on that. First of all, don't let anybody charge you a significant amount of money to get an EIN and set up your LLC for you. All of those things can be done quite easily. Now, if you want to pay someone to do it, usually, so there are people that are attorneys that they will kind of be your attorney of record for setting up your LLC. But in Idaho, like those attorneys will cost you about $300 compared to about $60 to $80 for you to do it yourself. Right. But you can do that if you just feel totally uncomfortable. But I will also tell you, if you just feel totally uncomfortable setting up an LLC and getting an EIN, you may be in trouble later on. Things only get more complicated from there.
There's only so much we can do to help, but
there's only so much that we can do to, you know what I mean? Like that's just the reality of the situation is you should set yourself up as an LLC and be sure not to, at least try not to mix your business and personal banking as much as possible. If you're going out to dinner with your family and it has nothing to do with writing, do not charge it on your business card.
But you can
you go to dinner and talk about or you can transfer money.
Just transfer money out of your business account into your personal account.
And that works just fine.
You can just distinguish that.
Handle those things that way. And there was a second thing I was going to say about that. And now I absolutely
register as a LLC, open a separate bank account, keep detailed records of income and expenses. Does that trigger your?
Yep. That's just the other thing. It's just track your income and expense. That was the other thing.
See?
Do this before you get busy. Authors will tell me, well, I'll do this when I'm making real money as an author. Then it is too late because, as I said, things just get more complicated. So you will only get busier as an author. So when you're super busy because you got the contract, all of a sudden you got all these sales and you go, oh, now I should set up an LLC. You do not want one more thing on your to-do list at that point. Do it early. If you're making $25 a month from your books, have it coming into an LLC. Save yourself the headache later on. Believe me, you don't want to be doing it when you're busy. It's just stupid. So don't do it. Do it early.
Exactly. Do it early. I used to give the worst advice. I used to tell people, oh, don't worry about it. But now I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Don't do that. Don't follow old Stacey's advice. New Stacey's advice is get it early.
Much better.
Much better. Yeah. Okay. So the first thing, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but we want to track your money in and out. So you can usually banks nowadays, it's so easy with the way that, you have online registers and they're like just right there. What's awesome is a lot of banks already have built in categories that you can categorize your expenses and you can actually like tag things certain ways. So even if you don't feel like you're at the point where you have to pay $120 a month, like me, for a QuickBooks account, you can still do stuff for relatively cheap, even free. Like I said, banks are, even my bank the other day, when I told them I paid for QuickBooks, I had a business manager guy tell me that I could probably use some of their tools already for free, and I didn't have to have QuickBooks. Like, they had stuff. So I was, like I said, there's stuff that's free with banks. Like, they want you to kind of help. They want to help you manage, because the more money you make, believe it or not, the more money they make.
Exactly.
So track everything. So you want to track your book royalties from your different distributors and aggregators, your direct sales from your websites, and so on. All of that needs to come in there. And then your services. So if you're doing any kind of like speaking engagements or conferences, or maybe you're doing a print run because you want to sell at a book fair, all those sales that you get from that book fair, they all need to come into that bank account. Okay. And then affiliate income. Like, so, Troy and I were actually just talking about affiliates and people that we could bring on as partners in our businesses. And like, they're willing to share the percentages of the sales that you make with them. So, those kinds of things, as long as it's author related income, stream it through there. The LLC is protected and it's separate from your personal life. So if anything happens, it's separate. So that's why you want to keep this in the LLC. And then let's talk about business related expenses. With authors, there's a lot of expenses that kind of come with the territory. So Troy, let everybody know what kind of expenses they can track and that they can use as deductions on their tax returns.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I'll talk about tracking what's coming in and coming out. If you're really uncomfortable doing this online with QuickBooks or whatever, there are spreadsheets out there. I have a really cool cash flow spreadsheet that I don't use anymore because I have a really cool online tool called Zero, which I think is better than QuickBooks. But anyway, that's a whole other debate for a different time. We'll demo that at some point, maybe, and let you guys see what that looks like. But that allows you to track cash flow and things like that, which is a little more advanced stuff that you don't necessarily need now. But find a way to track and categorize everything, because at the end of the year, you'll already know how much money you made, and you'll have a good idea about how much money you're going to owe when you're done with these deductions. Now, things you can do. So you can deduct your computer. Or the things that you write on. You can deduct, depending upon your circumstances, you can deduct a home office. You work in your house, you can deduct a certain percentage, and depending upon how big your office is, et cetera, you can deduct a certain percentage of your mortgage or your rent as your home office. When you go to conferences, any courses or education that you take, when you go to conferences, the travel, the meals, all that kind of stuff, mileage, plane tickets, whatever it is, whatever method you use to get there, can all be deductible. Just be sure you have that into a category that talks about conference travel versus regular travel. If you do personal fun stuff while you're there, just be sure that you note that there's a difference there, but you can deduct a lot of travel. If you go to Hawaii, write a book set in Hawaii or a story or something. Dude, just use your head.
Attend a conference.
So attend a conference, all those kind of things.
Right.
So you can deduct really almost anything that you can think of that any other business would do. Equipment, training, materials. If you buy a ream of paper for your printer, because you're printing things out, then you can deduct that ream of paper. Office supplies. Different things like that. So if you have a really great year as an author, buy a computer. Have a really, really great year, buy two. Upgrade your monitors.
1 year I bought 5 computers. It was a big year.
The most I've ever bought is 3 in a year. But I mean, things like my webcam that I'm using right now.
Yeah.
The light setup that I have. Now that I'm doing audio. My sound studio. So I have my microphone, my pop filters, all the cables that go with that, all that kind of stuff. Your office chair, your desk. Just think about anything that you use for writing is really fair game. Now, if you want to call going to a movie research, you can deduct that. But
I know somebody who does that.
It works. You can do that. But the other thing about this is track all of those things, but at the end of the year, hire an accountant. And if your
Mhm.
accountant says something to you like, you say, what does 2 + 2 equal? And he says, what do you want it to equal? That might
Get
not
it.
be the right accountant. Get
Get
a
a
new one.
different account.
One that's going to keep you on the right side of the law, because you don't,
Right.
for the most part, as an author, you're small potatoes and you don't really have to worry about the IRS that much. They're like, but you are going to have typically an inordinately high amount of deduction, because the other thing you can deduct is advertising. Well, even if you're doing really well at advertising, you're usually keeping 70 cents on every dollar, and the other 30% is going to advertising on
Right.
average. Let's just, we're throwing numbers out there that, and that's a different topic, different day. But let's say, right? So you're going to have a big 30% deduction out of your income for advertising. And you're going to get some accountants that are going to look at that and go, what? Are you kidding me? You spent all that money on marketing. If you have an accountant that does that, that's also the time to get another accountant.
Yep.
I got some really bad advice one tax year, and $8,000 later, I decided I needed some better advice. So
Ooh.
don't do that. Don't do that. That's there. It was a really big year for me, but it wasn't that big of a year that I should have paid $8,000. But anyway, so anyway, that's a whole other topic.
Well,
But
I will tell you,
just know quality of the
everything.
accountant matters.
Everything matters. So I'm going to add the other things that are expenses that you can deduct. You can deduct your ISBNs. You can deduct your editing costs. You can deduct your publishing costs. You can deduct your cover designers, your formatters, all of those things. In fact, I would recommend highly that you get W-9s from all of the professionals that you hire. So if they're, an editor, cover designer, everybody, they should have an EIN of their own, and they should provide a W-9 for you. That just legitimizes all your deductions and gives you a lot more solid footing when you're filing your taxes. So those are all highly recommended deductions that you take. So everything book related that you do to even produce that book, that's all tax deductible, guys.
And even if that person is not acting 100% of the professional themselves, get a W-9 from them with their social security number. If they don't have an EIN, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter either way, because you want to be able to deduct those things on your own taxes. This is another thing. If you're having a really great year as an author, and typically you do your own formatting, that might be the year to hire out your formatting, because just because you can do it, first of all, doesn't mean that you should be doing it all the time. You probably have better things to do with your time at that time. And it's a tax deduction. So if you're formatting your books, you're spending an hour and a half of your own time formatting them. Instead, hire somebody to do it for $75 a book or $100 a book or whatever, and deduct that from your taxes. All that stuff adds up. And as soon as you're over that standard deduction, with you're running an author business and you're making any decent amount of money, you're going to be over the standard deduction pretty quickly.
Then, in fact, it's not uncommon, and it's not going to be a bad thing if it looks like you're negative. In fact, I think you're allowed 5 years in a row consecutively to be negative. So if you're negative 5 years in a row, that's not a bad thing. That's just, I hope you don't have to go that far. I hope that, you're making your positives, but just keep that in mind. It's okay. It's okay. It's just on paper, guys. We do it on paper. The other thing I want to talk to you about is the deductions that you can make on software. So a lot of us get software subscriptions. So I pay for Microsoft Office, of course, and then we have all our subscriptions for our websites and all the plugins that we pay for, the education and courses that you take and that you pay for, advertising, like Troy said. And then, again, depreciation on your equipment. So do you have any others, like in terms of software and advertising that I'm thinking? You said meals and mileage. That's one thing, but
meals, mileage, software and stuff like that is just pay attention to that, because a lot of it is, first of all, it's really easy to get a bunch of those subscriptions that add up and not really be paying that much attention to them.
Right. Like every year I have to check them. Oh
yeah. And the other thing about those is get yearly ones if you can. And if you can get a lifetime deal on something, obviously get a lifetime deal. But if you can get yearly ones, it saves you a little bit of money and it's easier. You have one transaction to report in your tag. You don't have 15. right?
Yeah.
Which in some ways you'd think that doesn't matter, but when you have 8 different subscriptions and each of them comes out every month, that's 8 times 12.
It gets ugly
You're
quick.
you're just dealing with multiples of things, and it can get just ugly and really complicated looking really quick. And the person who's going to look at that and see how complicated it is in part your accountant. You want to make things as simple as possible for them too. So
Right.
keeping yourself organized, keep everything tracked, including all those deductions that you might be able to take, and doing that properly really just saves your accountant time too, because
Right.
and you want to make them happy. Like you want to
Yeah.
make your editor happy, you want to make your accountant happy, because then they want to do business with you, and they also are looking out for you if there's new deductions and stuff like that. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay. So, well, with all of this stuff, you're going to end up with a lot of receipts and documents and certifications and invoices. Make sure that you're saving all those. You can save them digitally. I highly recommend just taking your camera, taking a picture, and keeping them in a file on your computer or in your photo album. It really helps. It also helps for you to keep things clean. Having piles and piles of receipts. Trust me, I have some still from 20 years ago because I can't find the wherewithal to
Oh,
throw it away. I have it all shoved in an envelope in a box that's about this big, full of old tax returns clear back from when I first got married. It's pointless to do that. Like they don't track anything beyond 7 years, but for some reason I just can't get it out of my head
yeah.
to get rid of it. So save yourself the time and energy. Nowadays, I don't do that anymore. Everything's saved in a digital file. So all I get is that printed tax return from my accountant. And I shove it in that box and I'm away.
Yeah.
Don't even want to see it.
I keep printed tax returns for 3 years, digital ones for 7. And I have those archived in OneDrive, and then, very secure type
Right.
situation. And then, don't worry about it. But, I just give you some little advice. There's a piece of office equipment. It's actually, you could write it off if you purchase one.
Yeah.
You can go purchase one today. It's called a shredder.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You can take that old paper, you put it in there, it makes it into little tiny ribbons, protects your privacy, and get it out your house. Anyway,
Yeah.
just
That's good.
free
Good
advice for
advice.
people. Shredder is a great thing to have.
That is a good bit of advice.
Tax deductible. We're bringing it right back down to taxes. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're earning consistent income, this is something that you should think of as you're earning more consistent income. Consider doing quarterly estimated tax vouchers. It makes the end of the year tax bill a little less bitey. This is if you're making a considerable income that you're going to know that you're going to have to pay taxes on. This is advice that I struggle with only because I fail to always hit the deadlines. But just FYI, the deadlines are April 15th. This is for the quarterly taxes when they're due. April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, and January 15th. So they're quarterly. And again, you can ask your accountant what those estimated taxes are, but it's going to be based on your income from that business, not necessarily from what the business makes. That's different. So you'll have to talk to them about what that is, but that kind of makes the end of the year situation better. This year, luckily, because I made some of my quarterly estimated taxes, I actually am getting a return this year. It's the first time I've gotten a return since I opened my business. So it's pretty spectacular. I'm so excited. I celebrate. But
and if you have online software, like the one that I have, it gives me an estimated quarterly tax. Yeah.
Nice.
QuickBooks actually will too.
I know. I scared, Troy. I don't like
okay to look at it. It's okay to look at it.
I'm afraid it's like going to snake me and go bite.
Well, this is one of those things. It's like, and I still struggle with this at times, but I've become more relaxed about it, is that ability to relax about money. Yeah. And be like, it's okay to look at the number, because if that number is really high, what that means is you're making really good money. And the truth is this. So if you look at that number and it's really high and you don't want to make that big of a quarterly payment, Just make a smaller one, but make one. And then at the end of the year, like this year, you're getting money back because you made more than that. You had other deductions and, stuff like that. And always remember too, if you're looking at that and it looks like a really big number, you can contribute to your IRA until April 15th.
Good point.
For the previous year.
Good point.
So you can go, okay, well, if I owe $3,000, if I make a $3,000 contribution, as long as you haven't reached your maximum, that's a whole other. I'll go off on that in a minute. But anyway, $3,000, and you can drop that into your IRA, gives you a tax deduction. That's going to reduce that bill a whole bunch. So instead of giving it to the IRS, give it to yourself in your retirement account.
Smart.
And that preserves some of your money. So even if those numbers look big, don't be afraid to look at them, because that also gives you information that you can act on. Right. Because always, if we can get data that we can act on, then those things can be a little less scary for us. And that's one of the things you could do. Anyway.
Good point. Now I can sigh. That's good. Okay. Thank you. My anxiety is my best friend, she's a therapist, and she's always telling me, Stacey, your anxiety level is off the charts. You should be on benzos. Like there's something wrong with you.
Be on something really good. Something.
Why aren't you taking something to help you with this?
Oregon is not far from my house, and they have edibles now. They're really great. Just calm your ass right. No. I mean, yourself. Just calm me right down.
Calm me down. For some reason, I'm much happier when I'm stressed.
That's always great stuff. Great stuff.
Okay. So anyway, keep your documents at the end of the year. So at the end of the year, when your statements and everything come in from like Ingram Spark, KDP and everything, they're going to issue 1099s.
1099. Yep.
You can download those and keep them on your computers, and just make sure you download them all. Your publishing contracts, if you're working with a publisher, they're going to issue a 1099, things like that. So make sure you keep all of that in a file. You can label it, just like I said, on your computer. You can label it 2025, and you can just have all that stuff in there. But that will help you verify your income, and it'll protect you legally and keep you from looking like you're running a scam of some kind. You're showing that you're getting income from that stuff. Mm-hmm. Do you have any others that kind of come in? I'm sure from conferences. Do you ever get own? Oh, yeah.
On a conference. So basically, if you make more than $600, I had a conference last year that paid me $637.
So you got
to be a speaker. So I got a 1099 with $600.
Right.
I mean, but you still need to report that type of thing. The other thing is your direct sales income. Typically, you will report that on a 1099-C, I believe it is, which is income from your own business. So you are making that 1099. You still have to create it. You have to say this is where this income came from. And there's another aspect of taxes that we can talk about, which is sales tax, which is another thing. If you're doing direct sales.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. Let's talk about that in a second.
Yeah, finish with your topic, then I'll talk about. I've got two things probably that you may or may not cover, but anyway.
Okay. Let's just. Well, this is kind of like more like a wrap up. It's about hiring those people that might help you creatively as a creative business. So let's go ahead and transition into that. So
okay. So first of all, let me just throw out that because you're talking about anxiety, the anxiety about the IRS is normal because we live in one of the only countries in the world where the IRS says at the end of the year, you owe us money, and you say, how much? And they're like, well, you need to figure it out. And you're like,
you're going to go into this rant.
Then, that's right. Like, what if you're wrong? And then they're like, well, then you have to pay penalties or you go to jail if you're bad enough or whatever. We live in one of the only countries that has that type of a system. So having anxiety about the IRS is normal. So this is why I tell you to have accounting software, to hire an accountant, to do those kind of things, is because this can be anxiety producing, and for good reason. Nobody wants to pay more money for a penalty just because you forgot a comma somewhere or something, right? So just protect yourself. Try to be as good as you can about that. The other aspect that we don't talk about probably enough when we talk about direct sales is sales tax, because you have sales tax like Amazon, you'll notice that they collect sales tax from whatever state it is that you live in. That's the sales tax that they collect. And then they pay sales tax to each of those individual states. Now, you don't have to do that as an author. You can set up as an individual for your individual state and just pay sales tax that way. However, until you get to the European Union. And then everything changes because they have VAT and all that. So this is what I'll tell you with direct sales. The reason people use Shopify or things like Fourth Wall or something like that is because those programs have a thing where they are actually the merchant of record rather than you. And they handle your sales taxes for you in those particular cases. Okay. You're going to go direct sales, consider something like that for the simple reason of it simplifies your taxes, because you do not want to file taxes with every single state and every single country where you sold a book. You sold one book in Germany. It's just, there's a threshold before you have to pay, but it's a relatively low threshold in a lot of those countries. You sell more than $100 worth of books.
Thrivecart will do it for you. There's like a little add-on. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. You just click it. And like you said, it takes care of the taxes.
It does it for you. So do that.
Smarter.
But if you sell books in person at an event.
Book fair, yeah.
Like a book fair or whatever. So my friend and I went down to Phoenix. We sold a bunch of Star Trek books down in Phoenix. So we have to have a sales tax license from the state of Arizona because that's where that event happens. So you go to the state, you get a temporary sales tax thing, and then at the end of your event, you report how many sales you had, and you send them money to pay your sales tax. So just be sure that you adjust your Square or whatever
for
type
that
of checkout
tax
software you're using for that tax for that particular state. I've done these in Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah, Oregon, and Washington. At least. I think I did one in Pennsylvania too. But anyway.
Probably in Idaho too.
Idaho. I have a permanent one in Idaho, so I don't have to do it for every event. But anyway. But yeah, so if you're gonna do events, like especially in your state, get a permanent sales tax thing. They're usually free. It's not that big of a deal. The state just wants you to have a way to pay your sales tax.
To pay it, yeah.
And if you're using Square or something like that, it will break out what that sales tax amount is for you. And all you have to do is just send it in. It's really easy. You just put some numbers on a paper and send it into your state. But don't neglect doing that.
Right.
Some places they say, even if you don't have any sales on that particular event for that particular day, you put 0 on the form, 0 for the tax paid, and send it in anyway if you have an individual form instead of a permanent one. So just be aware of that. Sales tax is another thing to be aware of. Usually that is state, sometimes county, sometimes city. If you're down in California, they have some complicated stuff. But usually the event organizer will let you know what that is. You fill out the forms. You just make sure that you're covered. But don't go afoul of your states either. We're talking a lot about federal things, but don't go afoul of your states either. Pay attention to sales tax and all those kind of laws that you have when you're selling stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad that you said that because I have not had yet that need to pay sales tax on the services that I provide. But when I'm getting into my physical products and my digital products, it's like it gets to that point where you're like, oh, no, now I have to think about sales tax. And it's something I haven't had to think about up to now, but now I am. So I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. So then the last thing I wanted to cover on this it's kind of short today, but this is a very direct kind of episode, isn't it? But the last thing is hiring professionals. And specifically, it's helpful. Like Troy said earlier, you want to hire a good accountant, but I want to add the caveat that accountants that understand creative focused businesses are your best bet. The reason is because, so for example, I was working with an accountant a couple of years ago that he didn't understand my business like at all. Like he worked with people who, dealt in construction or just were normal people getting W-2s every year. And like, he just didn't have kind of an eyeball for what I was doing. And when I would try to talk to him about additional services or things that I was doing and asking him advice on how I should approach those tax wise and how to structure my company actually even strategically tax wise. He kind of, he put me in a bad position. And when it came time to file my taxes last year, like I said, I was stressed because first of all, he never reached out to me in time. And creatives, we're a little neurodivergent. I'm not neurodivergent. I'm not going to throw myself in the TISM scale, but I will say that I'm a little bit distracted. I have menopause, people. I'm full blown menopause right now. And like that brain is like whoosh, all over the place. So I need people to call me and say, Stace, did you do this? And I expected my tax person to do that for me. They didn't. And of course, then I'm getting close to that deadline, and it's right around conference year, right? Like that conference last year, which I was also all over the place. But I realized pretty close to that conference that I had not yet heard from my tax accountant. And so while I was at the conference, I was trying to get a hold of my accountant. Now that last day of the conference, what was the date? It was April 15th, the last day of the conference.
Oh yeah, it was.
It was.
They were due the 17th last year, I think.
Yeah. And when you're an S Corp, your taxes are actually due March 15th. So I'm an S Corp, and I was like, I didn't know this, but I was calling my tax guy for like 2 weeks before the conference, and they never called me back. March 15th or April 15th, I get a phone call as I'm leaving the conference. Just finished an amazing talk with James A. Owen, crying. My makeup's all because I'm just like worn out, and James just told me I can do this. And I'm like, really, I can? And I walk away, and I get a phone call from my accountant. Hey, Stacey, do you want to talk to us tonight?
Oh, no.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? I was so angry. So I called them the next day. I said, to heck with you. No. And I went home thinking, I got to find a tax guy like yesterday. So finally, one of my clients was really sweet. And he says, Stace, have you even talked to this guy, Lee? And I'm just going to put Lee's name out there. And we knew him actually, Troy, from the IWG Writers Guild. He took care of their 503C for a long time. And anyway, he had since stopped doing that, but he was still operating. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think about him. So I called him up, and he's like, yeah, you can come in. And Lee, if you guys knew him, he's like the funniest guy. He's such a hippie. He literally is the most laid back guy I've ever met in my entire life. I think that if he was one level underneath the energy level he's at, I think he'd be asleep. Like he's just it's just whatever. And then what's so funny is we're so close to tax deadline. I went to talk to him today, and he was literally like, yeah, things are really stressful around here. I was like, yeah, I can tell.
I can tell.
Yeah, things are really stressful around there. But anyway, yeah, he saved my bacon last year, guys. And what's really awesome about Lee is, like I said, he knows creatives. He is creative. He is a creative. Like he writes books. Like he's so helpful to have somebody who knows what I'm doing. And so when I talk to him about stuff, he's not like freaking out. He knows what strategies to apply and how I should approach them and things like that. So that's why it's so important to hire tax accountants or tax professionals or lawyers or anybody that understands what you're doing. If you need an attorney, we know a great firm, the Fraser, Bradley Fraser. He's an amazing attorney and does a great job for IP and copyright. And I've worked with Bradley now for a couple of years, and I absolutely love him. And we're not getting paid for this endorsement. I'm just throwing some names out there. But, just understand the CPAs that understand authors are going to be your best bet, especially people who work with freelancers and people.
And if you have questions about that, there are author organizations out there that will refer you to people in your state.
Right.
Who are registered with those author organizations. So it's not like you have to go and interview every accountant in your city and saying, what do you think when I say Amazon marketing campaign, and watch their eyes gloss over, and then that type of thing. You don't have to do that, right? You don't have to do that. You can contact somebody who's already been vetted. Same thing with attorneys and stuff like that. Your network and your writers organizations that you're a part of are invaluable for that part of just knowing people who understand what you're doing and can actually help you. Because there are those people that will not actually help you and are really, they suck at it. And, you know, like I say, like the one I had that, you know, similar to yours, that put me on the wrong path. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute here. This is not good, not normal. And I don't want to pay this much money at the end of every year. So, yeah. And quarterly taxes, be sure you talk to your attorney, because once you make, to your accountant, because once you make a certain amount of money, they're kind of required.
Yeah.
Like once you're over a certain amount of money, your quarterly taxes are no longer, they stop being optional.
Right.
Now,
So,
you know, there's a certain amount of grace there because they are quarterlies, but still, like the main thing you want with the IRS is you don't want them to know who you are and look at you for any reason.
Yeah.
Like you want to be every year you submit your taxes, they're always about the same. You know, if you're experiencing big growth, you know, just understand you may get a question from the IRS. You might get audited that year because they may say, how did you go from being a 5-figure author to a 7-figure author in 1 year? And you may have to explain that.
You have to explain. Right? Yeah. So, but if you have all your records, you'll have no problem doing that. There'll be nothing to fear.
You'll be fine. And if you have an accountant, they sit next to you at the audit and the IRS comes in and says, what about this? And your accountant says, page 47, and hands them something. And you go, hey, man, that's awesome. Thank you. Because I had no idea what page that was on.
Right.
So,
exactly.
You know, that type of thing. But yeah, so just understand that the less you're on the IRS or your state's radar or whoever, the better. So the more you just faithfully pay your taxes, file normally, that type of thing. Even if you're running a loss, just understand that's perfectly okay and let it happen. But anyway.
Exactly. Well, awesome. So if you would like, I think I'll go ahead and provide a little checklist that covers all of this stuff that we came up with today. And I'll put it free link to it in the chat or in the comments or the description.
The description.
Yeah. So if you guys want to download this free little checklist, remember, Troy and I are not tax advisors. We are not CPAs. We are not professional accountants. So this is not legal advice. This is not advice that you should take without consulting an accountant, but this is just helpful in terms of like making sure you stay kind of like on track with where you're going. And also these are things that you can bring up to your accountant and ask them about.
Yeah. Most of this advice is general enough and high level enough that you're not going to get in trouble. But the thing is, track everything and then ask your accountant, is this actually deductible in my particular case? Don't say, you know, Troy and Stacey said if I put tires on my car and I drove it twice this year to author events that I can deduct those tires.
I can deduct it
because, you know, first of all, your accountant's going to say who, and he's not going to care about us. And unless you use an accountant that we know, and then he's going to say, why are you listening to anyway? So yeah, don't listen to advice from us. Just as far as
I would say,
advice.
Like specific.
General advice and the checklist, absolutely. But when it comes to your particular situation in your particular state, wherever you are, be sure to consult with an accountant who's familiar with your state laws, federal laws, creatives, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So so I'll make sure that that's in the description below so you guys can get that. And then, if you have any other questions, like and subscribe. Troy and I are here to help authors. We are author focused and making sure that authors can have a successful author business. You can find Troy at TroyLambertWrites.com. He is the plot dude. And then you can find me at editsbystacey.com or printtopro.com. And I will be your publishing and author business guru. I got to come up with a tagline there. It used to be like, I'll help you pen, polish, and publish. But it's almost like I'm kind of like moving
a little
into
beyond
this.
that. At
I'm
this
going,
point. Yeah.
I'll pen polish and publish. We're still doing that, but I have a team of professionals now that we're putting together and assembling for you. And we're going to make sure that we're getting all aspects of your author business all in line so that you don't just get thrown out there to the wolves anymore. We want to make sure that you're actually going to have a plan in place. And I'm so excited about the things that Troy and I are talking about and working on. We've got so many things. We've got irons in the fire. We are so excited. Like this, like you said, publishing 4.0, man, I am so excited about publishing 4.0. We are like, this is going to be the year 2025, guys. Yep. Watch out, pay attention. But yeah, again, you can follow us. We've got lots of free resources on our websites, and we're here to help you. So just reach out to us and we'll be there to help you succeed. Do you have anything else you want to finish up with today, Troy?
No, that's
it. Okay.
Good.
Awesome. Right. Well, then our next episode, next week, we're going to be talking about, what did we say? I want to say what we're going to say. What are we talking about next week?
What are we going to say next week?
Where it's the
oh man, I got funny lines on my face from my blinds. This is really fun.
We're going to talk about subgenre trends, like the cozy kink and the vice-i. So we'll talk about some others and see what's going on out there as far as subgenres and why. Go ahead.
I just had a conversation with Alex Newton too, so I'll bring some of that information.
Oh,
and the guy from K-Lytics.
Yeah.
So I'll bring some of that information and we'll talk about K-Lytics and Kindlepreneur and some of the, Publisher Rocket and some of the tools you can use to follow this stuff. So
Publisher Rocket is my favorite. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well then, we'll talk next week about that. So I'm excited to talk about that. Well, everybody, you have a great day. Happy tax season.
Yep. Oh yeah.
We'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Yep. All right.